Welcome to Beyond Film School, where I teach you all about the film industry. I'm Amber, and in this video, we are talking to script supervisors about how they got their start in film. Everyone always wants to know how people who work in film, how they got there. What did they do to get in? With this new series of videos, we are talking to professional script supervisors, union and indie. With everyone I interviewed, they have a wide range of experience to give you the full picture of what it's like to be a script supervisor on set. I was very excited to interview them, and I am so grateful that they were so giving of their time and for me to be able to chat with them and pick their brain about what they do as script supervisors. And some of them I've actually been able to work with personally on set, so it was really good to reconnect with them. And now let's hear how these script supervisors got their start in film.
I pinpointed the position of script supervisor because a friend of mine suggested I should look into the title of script supervisor. I'm like, wait, what the hell is that? So I Googled it and I read the description. I was like, oh my God, this is so detail oriented. This is exactly how my mind operates. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I should just reach out to a script supervisor. So I did. I reached out to a script supervisor, union one, and I gave her my resume, and she was like, oh, you really do have, background that will coincide well in transitioning into this role. So I did a 3-day script supervisor type, how to do things, what's expected of you, etc., etc. Since I already had the language of television news, I already knew framing, I knew my shots, color, white balance, all that other jazz, especially audio. Like, I knew that aspect, but I didn't know I can have it worked in this new role as a script supervisor. So she was like, oh, you know this stuff, just start working on student films and good luck.
Good luck.
So that's what I did. I started working on student films between 2008, 2010. Then from those student films, that's when I started getting paid jobs or long form narratives such as features that were non-union. And that's how I started making money before I jumped ship with Apple in 2010.
So you were like, you kept your full-time job?
Part-time
with
Apple.
You kind of like split, you had two different
worlds. I worked the overnights at Apple. So daytime I would do one thing, and at night, overnights I would be there.
So I went to grad school in Philadelphia at Temple, and when we were all doing our thesis projects, a friend of mine actually in my year just kind of casually said, I think you would be a really good script supervisor, and asked if I would be his scriptie. And so I agreed, just kind of looked into it. I didn't know much about what they did. I knew a little bit. And so I started to look into it a little bit more, came on set as his script supervisor. And then all of a sudden I was just everybody's script supervisor for all the thesis projects. And then, after I graduated, I was like, well, I have some experience doing this. This was fun. I started looking into it a little bit more. Then I got hired on, a super low budget indie feature that came into town. And it kind of snowballed from there, quite honestly. It was that was my first feature. And then all of a sudden, I met people, I did a good job. And then I was on to the next feature and the next feature and the next feature. So I did primarily features and also some commercials, did kind of a little bit of everything.
I didn't really learn about script supervising until I moved to the US and I was in acting school. And I was actually watching a Beyond Film School video about script supervisors. And I was like, what is this? I have been in kind of involved in filmmaking since way back. I interned at public television service in Taiwan and everything, and I was like, I kind of vaguely remember what a script supervisor looks like, but I don't really know what they do. And then it wasn't until I watched your video and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it got to a point where you're like, this is the type of person that would be make a good script supervisor. And I was like, oh my God, she's describing me exactly. And so that was kind of the beginning of the end for me. So at that point, I looked into some script supervising courses, and this was still deep in the pandemic. I was still in acting school, full-time doing online school. And so I didn't really have a chance to be on set or start working. So I took those courses, and then after a few months I graduated, and I was like, I'm going to kind of side by side try to do both acting and also get into script supervising. And my first script supervising job was actually It was supposed to be a PA job, so I showed up to this like super low budget short film, and it was a PA job, but in my cover letter that I sent over, I was like, I took the script supervising course, this is something that I'm interested in. I show up to set and the director walks up to me with the script, which, by the way, I haven't read up until now because I was just going to be a PA, and he hands it to me and he's like, well, I remember you said you wanted to be a script supervisor, so here you go.
Wow.
You can be a script supervisor. And I was like, great. So cue me, like, just searching on my phone, trying to figure out how to do this job. Like, I've taken those courses, but I didn't have any of my forms. I was so unprepared. So honestly, just like any film job, you kind of just get thrown into the deep end of the pool, and that was very much my experience. And it was wonderful, and I learned so much on that job. And then subsequently, like, I started getting more and more of these like indie, non-union stuff, and yeah.
I knew I wanted to work in film. I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly, though. Obviously, the obvious things are, write or direct. That's what everyone wants to do. But I decided I'd sort of work around the industry a little bit and figure that out. I was in high school at the time, and I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I knew somewhere, and I didn't want to go to the wrong film school. When I was in school, I wanted to sort of focus properly. So I spent some time interning a couple production companies, and what people were telling me around then was that they didn't really think film school was it. Like, a lot of them had gone and had made nothing of themselves, or it hadn't helped them in their career at all.
They're in the same spot almost where you were.
Yeah, they were pretty much in the same spot. They just had a little more knowledge, but nothing significant, honestly. And so I pitched to my parents that I take my 4 years of college and intern at various places, just work for free around the city and find what I enjoy doing in the industry, really. At that time, I was more settled into writing. I sort of wanted to write at that time, but I didn't really know. I spent 4 years just interning around the city, various production companies and productions and stuff, and I fell into script supervising, and that's what I've been in.
How I got into film, I actually started out as an actor. So I came to the States. I'm Canadian originally. I went to a 2-year film conservatory, and I did that for about 6 or 7 years. Started to kind of lose the love for the grind. So I tried a couple of other things. So I produced a little bit, I script supervised. A couple of other things happened in my life, illnesses, personal tragedies, and then COVID hit. So in those couple of years, I decided that script supervising was the thing for me, and that's what I wanted to pursue, and here I am.
How long were you a script supervisor in indie? How long were you doing this?
Started in 2015, and then I kind of went back and forth. So I did script supervising from 2015 until about 2018, and then I took 2 years to produce, and then 2020 hit. I did COVID for about 3 years, but while I was working in COVID, that was when I was like, I would like to do script supervising full time. So in my hiatuses, on my weekends, on my remote days off, that sort of thing, that's when I got those days in and like slowly built my days. So had I not been working those jobs, I probably could have joined a couple of years ago, because now it's like, yeah, I was doing it for 8 years before I actually joined. But I know someone who did it for 2 years and then she joined, and It just depends on your own journey and your own path and where you can squeeze it in and where you can afford to squeeze it in for those lower rates.
I actually did go to film school. I actually do have a master's in film production, but I started out in the documentary world and it's a smaller world. So you have smaller companies where you do more things. So I did hands-on, everything from sending out the call sheets, booking camera, booking the crew, sending directions, blah, blah, blah. And then going into the field, doing field notes, doing a string out. And that's kind of how I got into script supervising. I was in the DC market, which is really a documentary market, but there were a couple features that came through. And I went and I PA'd on those and met the script supervisor, and she needed someone to fill in, and there really wasn't anybody to fill in. This is not a union production, obviously.
Right.
But, and she's like, I think you'd be good at this. And, I've done my own films at that point, from start to finish. And she said, what, we can go over how I do it, and then you could fill in a couple days. And that's kind of how I got started.
Even with me working on set all these years, I still love knowing everyone's origin story and how they got started in film. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this, and the one thing I want you to notice, is that all those script supervisors had their own path. They had their own approach. And some of them chose script supervising, and then others, script supervising chose them. Some had film school and some didn't. No route is wrong when it comes to this stuff. But all of them utilized the opportunities that were in front of them and just went with it.
And I know tons of script supervisors who started out as props or started out as actors. It's like, the skills translate, and if you're a fun person to be around, you're gonna be hireable, because a lot of this on top of the job is like being a person that you can be in a tiny little hot tent with all day. Yes. And not be annoying or not be rude or, not bring in beef jerky or something like that. Like, not be, you need to be a person that's enjoyable to be around for long amounts of time, for numbers of weeks or months on end, in often very small, uncomfortable spaces that are cold or hot.
It's never perfect.
It never is. You just gotta roll with it.
If you're looking for a great book about script supervising, definitely check out Beyond Continuity. It is rated #1 on Goodreads and on Amazon. That link will be below for you. It is an Amazon affiliate link at no extra cost to you. This video talked all about how they got started, but if you need another video to spell out responsibilities, skills, characteristics that go into that role, I have a video there on the screen for you. Check it out. It goes really deep into what a script supervisor is doing. If this video was helpful or gave you some type of value, definitely like, subscribe, or share this video with someone who can learn from it. And if you want to see the full interviews, definitely check out my channel membership, because they will be available for the channel members. Just hit that join button. And thank you so much for watching. And that is it for now. I shall see you next time.